At the core of this is really an idea of defining a product use case. It's not just the product, it's a combination of the user, the conditions for use, that is, under what circumstances do they do this, and what is the function that this performs in that situation. If I'm selling a mop, I need to understand that the mop is going to be used by an adult human, probably at home, and probably right after they spilled something. And their job is to clean it up so that they can get back to cooking dinner. That is a product use case, and understanding that whole picture is critically important. As you get to know the market, much greater detail comes into focus. And that's part of why it takes time to develop the idea for a startup. And it's critically important to talk to people who really have fit some model of what's the user and what are the conditions for use. And the more precisely you can define it, the more refined and interesting your product becomes. And the more precise you're targeting, it drives down the adoption barrier because somebody looks at the label on it, figuratively or literally, and they see that the problem they have is listed on the data sheet, the website, the product packaging. That makes it readier for immediate use, and you can identify the customers in the segment more readily. It also drives up the value. If you see a generic cleaning product, someone may not be willing to pay a lot for it because they don't really know whether it fits. It's a bit of a hedge for them. If it says cleans up latex paint spills, and they're dealing with a latex paint spill, someone will pay a premium for that kind of a product. It will have the side effect of driving down usage in adjacent segments. So if you were hoping that people would find all kinds of uses for it, and sometimes people say, you know, this is the miracle cleaner, it works on everything. You get one kind of adoption from people who are uncertain or they don't know how many different kinds of spills they're going to have, but it's less likely that your product, which is labeled as just for latex paint spills, is not going to be used for by somebody who has an oil-based paint spill. So you've driven down usage in adjacent segments. We also need to lay the groundwork for thinking about business models and pricing. Business models and pricing are related but different. The business model is the fundamental structure of what you're doing. Did you buy it? Did you lease it? Did you give the product away? Did you give the value away? But you also got an opportunity from the user to advertise to them. And Google, of course, is the poster child for developing that model. Or their in-app purchases, you know, Clash of the Titans that you downloaded for free. And then you find out that you can't play the game well unless you actually start paying for it. Pay per use. You know, for example, Airbnb is a pay for use. You're paying by the night. The first Babel Labs product was ClearCloud, a tool that allowed you to apply a noise filter, especially to uploaded videos and audio clips. And you just use some number of credits. It was basically, it cost you millicents per minute of audio to do that. And there are some interesting business models that are really kind of like advertising. You know, Discord is free, but what they're doing is creating a platform that allows various brands to connect up better and form partnerships with Discord, which creates their revenue stream. You can combine business models. There are things where there are some kinds of products that make sense for both business and consumers. Inkjet printers. Everybody needs them, whether they go into an office or go into your home. Probably doesn't matter that much to the product, but you will find a lot of segmentation even within those product lines. And pricing, of course, is the other piece of it. It depends on the market. How unique is it? What's the substitution cost? How could I do it differently? If there's lots of competition, the price ultimately becomes one set by the competition, set by the cost of actually delivering the product. You get something where you get some margin over your costs if the barrier to entry is small, because the nature of markets is that competitors will enter until it's no longer attractive for the nth competitor to join in because the price is so low that they can't make much money at it. If your product is more unique, the price is set by the pain of not using the product. The user gets to decide how much is it worth to me, and what level of substitution is possible. I can't get the same product from somebody else, but there's another way to clean up my spill. I could use paper towels, but I have to get down on my hands and knees. And so I'm willing to pay some premium for a mop because it has a handle. The pricing model also both dictates and depends on what kind of a distribution channel you're doing. If you have an expensive sales channel, for example, you have salespeople who make phone calls and drive in cars to visit people or connect on them on email, you have to pay for that effort, and you need to build that margin to cover that sales cost into whatever your pricing model is. And then you have a wide variety of things you do where the cost to you may be significantly less. If I'm doing web distribution, for example, very low cost distribution scheme, but you may need to do a lot more marketing. So it may hit you someplace else. But thinking about the relationship between pricing models and sales channel is one important and interesting piece of it. You also need, therefore, to think about this ecosystem, where you fit in, because you're going to sit in a place where you have competitors. And you're going to need to understand what they offer versus what you offer, because you're both targeting a set of customers. And so partitioning, dissecting, segmenting that use case and the customers associated with it is the first step. But then you also need to understand who the customer's customers are, particularly when you're selling to businesses. Because very often you've got this thinly layered value chain where you are aware of who your customer's customer are. You know that your customer is trying to serve their customers even better. And that may give you some clues about what your customer's pain is. Because in a business environment, the biggest pain, the biggest need of a customer is to sell more or sell better or to cut costs so that they can do better with their customers. In some cases, you not only want to know who the customer's customers are, you even want relationships with the customer's customer. You think about the old Intel Inside campaign. That was basically a consumer marketing effort to the customers of Intel's customer. Intel was trying to sell to Dell and all the other PC makers. And what Intel was doing was creating pull, creating demand for the latest Intel processors so that the end customer's supplier, Dell, would be more likely to choose and pay a premium to Intel. And the rest is also clear. You will have partners. You have other people who are targeting the same customers. You need to coordinate with them to some degree to understand what they're offering next. You need to understand what new needs they are creating and what existing needs they are at least partially filling. If you're going to be thinking about your customer's customer, then you need to think about your customer's partners and think about how you can also help them do a better job of serving your target customer's need by making it easier to sell. And finally, suppliers may have a key role. I mean, if you're Dell, figuring out and knowing what Intel is planning to do has generally been pretty important. If you're AWS offering GPU compute services, you need to know exactly what NVIDIA is bringing on the market. And sometimes the supplier is so dominant that you are completely dependent on what they choose to do, and building that relationship and figuring out how you help solve one of your supplier's problems can be important. And in fact, the job that you have in positioning, in discovering a strategy, is often one of figuring out where's the white space. If you think about that value chain and you look at you look horizontally, what are my competitors and my partners doing? Or you look vertically at your suppliers and your target customers, you can often adjust left and right and up and down where exactly you're going to fit in to find the place which is least heavily occupied. There is a third axis of importance, is that you may start out saying, okay, I'm interested in this space and I've studied my partners and my competitors and my suppliers and my target customers, and I've looked around to see where I fit. And you say, I don't really fit this picture. And then you can move in the third dimension, which I would say is you're resegmenting. You're saying, I'm actually going to redefine the set of customers and suppliers that I use. I'm going to choose a different set of competitors that I want to compete with. I'm going to create new segments and therefore take on the work of building new consortia of customers who want this kind of thing. And this is really what happens a lot in the case of emerging markets. So let's take a pause there and reflect a little bit. The key message of this and this whole section is one of finding your space, finding where you're going to fit in a context of markets, products, partnerships, and channels to figure out where you can fit, and developing an understanding, developing an internal vocabulary to think about where you fit in is one important tool of being better able to get creative, to understand what's going on, to interpret the moves of different players in that space, and to find a place where you can take root and grow.